Yeah, it's here. No, it's on your desk. Yeah.
Do we need them? All right, okay. Well, I'll repeat it. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the Pension Board meeting. And we've got Mark virtual, have we? West Yorkshire there yet? Who's from West Yorkshire?
Yeah.
Eunice?
We've got
Yes, I'm here.
yeah,
Right.
we've got Eunice
Hello.
and Lisa and Matt and Amy will be along for her presentation
Right,
in a little
my
bit.
word. Well, welcome, West Yorkshire.
Full house.
My apologies, Roger, for not being there in person, but I'm well. We're self-isolating because my wife returned a positive PCR test about 9 days ago, and we both had them. She's positive, I'm negative. But we both have to isolate, and tomorrow's our last day of isolation. So I'm from home at the moment.
Okay, well, pleased you could join us. So, any apologies?
Just as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we've got Councillor Whittington joining virtually.
But he can participate. Yes, definitely. It's not a normal... Any declarations of interest? No?
Yes, normal declaration. My wife's a deferred member of the pension fund.
And I guess Mark will want
Yes,
to...
and my wife is also a defined member of the pension fund as well.
Okay. So, moving on to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 14th of October. Can we just turn the pages just for accuracy, first of all? Anything on page 5 and 6, page 7, page 8 and 9, and 10 and 11? Happy for me to sign them as a correct record, please? Yep, agreed. Can we just go through one or two items, I think matters arising. So, just turn them again, page 5, page 6. On page 7, on minute 19, Andrew, have you got anything to add with the SCT and Prudential?
Yeah, we have relatively hot off the press actually, so now I'll hand over to Joe as well for a bit further information on the local circumstances as well. So I've been in contact a couple of times with my counterpart at Cheshire West, Mark Wynne, who's the pensions representative for the Treasurers Society. And he provided us a useful update at the start of this week after we'd had our recent discussion around a meeting that was held by the Scheme Advisory Board on the 13th of December about the issue, and Prudential are committed to issuing a statement to all authorities who are covered by it and an action plan and what have you around resolving the issues that we've talked about previously. So it's been dealt with at the highest sort of possible level. Yeah, and then I'll just hand over to Joe for some additional, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And just the other question, part of that question though about the annual benefit statements to members from Prudential, they actually have until the 31st of March 2022. They have a full year after the year end to get those out to members, so they're not actually in breach yet. It's just much delayed than normal, and Claire will cover where we are with the accounts information in that report. Thank you.
No indication of when you get the statement? Oh, okay.
I have tried to chase up, but haven't had a response.
Okay. Then on to page 8. Just wondered on minute 21, Eunice, whether you've got anything else to add on the annual benefit statements about developing that system to provide additional information as to whether people had tapped into the statements. You know, I mean, 99.9% is great and 98.7%, but It's whether or not people have read them, particularly in this kind of time when you know, a lot of emphasis on retirement matters and helping members, etc., etc.
Yeah, I take your point, Chair, but equally I could still say the same about whether people read the written format as well. We post them out, but we've no knowledge whether people actually read them or understand them or do anything with them. But regardless of that, we have approached Civica to ask for this facility, which hasn't been agreed yet in terms of, but it's an ongoing initiative that we are pursuing.
Okay, so at this stage we've no idea as to, if you like, the proportion of people who have accessed them.
No.
Okay. In which case we'll move to item 4, which is the pension fund update report. Are you, Jo?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So this is the standard quarterly paper, and I'll just like to highlight a few areas. So section 1 on page 13 and the appendix on page 23 shows how the fund meets the requirements of the pensions regulator. And just in response to a question from a board member, I'm awaiting 2 members of the committee to find out when they will complete their TPR training toolkit, which will then enable us to get B12 back to green. The chairman of the pensions committee did contact both members to remind them of this requirement. So he will be on top of that to ensure that they do complete their mandatory training. Section 2 on page 14 updates the board on the breaches that have occurred over the quarter. The late payment of contributions is covered in the report at item 9 on the agenda. We've already talked about Prudential, but the response is attached at Appendix C that we received from them back in November. We are still, at this point, waiting for the year-end information, which Claire will pick up in the accounts. Section 3 on page 15 details the new risk added to the risk register as requested by the Pensions Board and agreed by the Pensions Committee at its December meeting. So this risk is where the AVC provider doesn't meet their regulatory requirements or timescales and has been added as risk 016 set out at paragraph 3.2. The risk score is currently assessed at being 3, with the likelihood 3, because it's happening, it's actually more of an issue, and the impact at 1 because of the low number of scheme members that are actually in there. As West Yorkshire have mentioned previously, there has been an improvement in the service, so it is expected that that likelihood will hopefully in the coming months reduce. Section 4 on page 16 provides an update on what's been happening with Border to Coast. There have been 2 high-level departures announced, as set out in paragraphs 4.1 to 4.4. The multi-asset credit sub-fund is now live, with assets being transitioned in November, and the funds invested 5%, or approximately 145 million, into that vehicle. The Joint Committee was held on the 23rd of November, and papers were shared with the board. Any questions or comments can be fed back to Councillor Strengle at the next, so he can raise them at the next joint meeting that's being held on the 8th of March. In addition, a senior officers meeting was held in November to discuss the agenda set out in paragraph 4.12. The shareholder resolution mentioned about the reappointment of Councillor Holtby from East Riding Pension Fund to the Partner Fund NED position has been approved by all shareholders. Section 5 on the report at page 18 provides an update on the budget and business plan that was brought to the March Pension Board. Paragraph 5.3 explains the variance in the budget to the end of September 21, biggest difference here being manager fees, where most fees are not calculated until year end, as pooled vehicle fees are collected through adjustments to the net asset value of the holding rather than being invoiced. So this isn't a true reflection of fees at this point in the year, as we're only able to report on invoiced fees until after we've done our year-end work. An update on progress against the business plan is set out at paragraph 5.4. The two areas behind schedule are the delay in receiving an audit opinion in the annual report and accounts, as previously reported, but which has now been received, and it was published on December the 16th. And the work with the Scheme Advisory Board, so the progress of the good governance work has halted somewhat due to the pandemic and other priorities that they have, but both of these areas unfortunately have been out of our control. We had a question that was raised about why we don't show a comparison of the budget to Q2 compared to the actual Q2. The issue we have there is that the budget is set as an annual budget rather than a month-by-month or quarter-by-quarter budget. And things come into the accounts as and when they occur, or as and when we were invoiced. So it wouldn't be any more helpful if we were just to half the budget and show you at half year. We would expect to see this. The only, if you don't find that this adds any value, then we could just report annually, but it's really, we report half yearly, just if there are any large variances where something unexpected has happened that we can make sure that you're aware of.
Yeah, no, I agree. There should be something. If it was only if it was a phased budget, which if there's no phased budget, I agree that's all you can do really. So yeah, that's fine.
And there was also a question on why the refund from West Yorkshire for 2021 was less than originally expected. The figure that was originally mentioned is always going to be an estimate. What happens is at year end, all the figures are trued up, actual membership numbers as at 31st of March are calculated, then our portion of the costs are then recalculated and any true up done. So there will always be a difference till we get the actual figure as to what we put in the budget.
The only reason I raised that partly was because, from memory, I thought it was actually the other way around. There was going to be a larger refund because the cost per member was lower, but whether that's relevant, if there's more members, I don't know. That was the reason I raised it, because I thought from the previous meetings there would be a larger refund, potentially. But
yeah, the membership numbers went up, so it may have been a lower cost per member, but the membership numbers increased. They were the only points that I was going to raise from the paper, but I'll happily take any other questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you very much for that. So the recommendation is the board consider and note the report. Thanks very much, Joe. So we'll move to item 5, responsible investment update. Claire?
Thank you. This report brings to the board details of the fund's responsible investment activity during the second quarter of 21-22. The report details the activity which has been undertaken by the fund and organisations that the fund is a member of and uses to undertake RI activity on its behalf. Section 2 of the report sets out the details of the work of the Local Authority Pension Fund Forum, and paragraph 2.2 details the work that they've undertaken during the quarter. This includes company engagements, collective engagements, and responses made to consultations on behalf of its members. Further information on their activity can be found in their quarterly engagement report, and there's a link contained in our report to that. Section 3 covers the work of Border to Coast. Each quarter, Border to Coast publish details of their RI activity that they've undertaken, and that can be found on their website. Highlights from this are set out at paragraph 3.2 and include the publication of their first standalone climate change policy, and that has been developed in collaboration with all partner funds. And it announces their commitment to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions across all of their investments by 2050 or sooner if possible. In addition to the work undertaken directly by Border to Coast, they have appointed Robeco to provide voting and engagement services. And details of their activity can be found in section 4 of the report. Section 5 covers voting activity for the 2 Border to Coast equity funds that we're invested in, and Appendix A and B provide more details on the voting activity during the quarter. Finally, during the quarter, the fund submitted its Stewardship Code report for 2021 to the Financial Reporting Council. The next list of successful applicants will be published in March 2022, and it's around this date that we expect to receive feedback from the FRC on our submission. Details of the feedback and submission itself will be brought to the board once it's been received. That was all that I wanted to say, but I'm very happy to take any questions on the report.
Right, thank you, Claire. Any questions? No? No? Easy ride today.
One
Okay.
comment.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. Just one comment. I think it's really positive, actually. Oh, sorry, that's my foot on my phone there. I think it's really positive, actually, that Borders to Coast are actually using Beacon. I think that's really useful and a really good idea. You know, I think it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to know. Not. It's good to see as well that at times they've not supported management. They've actually, because that to me indicates they have used sort of independent judgment on things. That's all I was going to say, really, Roger. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mark. No comment?
Yes, certainly the use of Robeco gives that extra depth and spread for getting to all parts of the market. And yeah, in the Appendix A and B on the voting, you can see the explanations provided for why Border to Coast have chosen to vote against management when they have. And if anyone wants to see more details, then Border to Coast can provide those if wanted.
Okay, thank you, Claire. If there's nothing else, the recommendation is that the board note the report and discuss the responsible investment activity undertaken during the quarter, which we've done. So thank you. Move to item 6, which is the Pensions Administration Report. Eunice, are you starting on this, or is it Lisa?
I think I've got the short straw, Chairman. I'll start, and Lisa can chip in anytime she wants.
Okay, over to you.
Okay. Yep, this is our quarterly report ending September. Section 1 is KPIs and performance against our targets, the number of cases that we monitor and measure against, and how we've done against those. So a list of work types there with case numbers and performance against those. Overall, quite pleased with the performance. There are a few areas where performance has not met the required standards. My concern really would be just on one of those, which is the pension estimates, because again, that's quite key for us in terms of making sure members get timely estimates. The other two, death grant nominations and deferred benefits set up on leaving, we treat as low priority because we have the details. Certainly for death grants, the form is scanned onto the member's record. So in the event of a death, we have the up-to-date information available to pay the beneficiaries. It's just that the process hasn't been completed. And deferred benefits set up on leaving, again, this is probably a regular one that underperforms, and that's mainly because these are beneficiaries where benefits are not payable for a long time in the future. And again, as I've said in the past, we do contact the member immediately on receiving leaver information. It's just that we don't give them details until sometime later when we've actually processed the cases. So the member is aware that we've got the notification, and we'll be contacting them in due course. The pension estimate, as I referred to, all I can say really at this moment in time is that we are now on top of our pension estimates. The backlog has been cleared, so going forward the performance will be much better. But I think with it being holiday season and staff absences for other reasons, then that particular area has suffered, unfortunately. Scheme information, I won't go into much detail on that because that's pretty much consistent with previous reports. Just a breakdown of the membership of the Lincolnshire Pension Fund, broken down into different categories of membership and age groups as well. Employer activity. the number of employers within Lincolnshire pension funds stands at 300, and that table gives you a breakdown in terms of the various different types of employers within the fund. Section 3 reports on member and employer contact. Firstly, the member surveys. We, as you're aware, we do member surveys regularly. We receive 2 online customer responses. So online is where there is a form on our website. Anybody can go in anytime and complete one. Otherwise, what we do is we send out a survey to a random number of people who have received a service from us and ask for their feedback on that. So we sent out 132 survey forms, received 16. So that's a 12% return. The satisfaction score has gone up to 96.9%. You will see from Appendix A some of the comments that we've had back from members. Pleased to say no negative comments. Employer training, again, we are carrying out our regular employment training, albeit online now, which seems to work pretty well actually, because we can get employers participating across all funds that we provide administration for. Internal disputes procedure. The information shown on the tables there, both at stage 1 and stage 2, I can update a little bit. Stage 1 appeals against the fund. The second one on the death grants, that has now been resolved, and that was turned down. Stage 1 appeals against employers. The first one, appeal against being refused ill health pension, that has now been awarded, and ill health pension has now been awarded to the member. The second one, just bear with me, I will just lost that one momentarily. Yep, the second one, we're still chasing up with the employer on the one against the refusal of ill health pension, the second case with Lincoln College. So they've had a reminder sent recently, still not heard anything from them. On stage 2, 2 appeals there. The first one has now been turned down. The second one, we are still waiting to make a decision on that one. So that's still outstanding. Section 5, so no ombudsman's cases. Section 5 on administration update.
Eunice,
yeah.
Forgive me. Can we just go back to the appeals?
Yeah.
I mean, they do seem to take a long time, but in particular, the one at Lincoln College, 28th of April 21, and you're still chasing the employer.
So the ill health ones, unfortunately, do take a long time. Again, I don't know really what the delay on this particular one is, or what stage the delay is at, but I can find out. But ill health ones, traditionally, there is a lot of parties involved. There's the employer's HR, there's GP, there's specialist hospitals. So getting complete information sometimes can be problematic. I'm not saying it is for this case because I haven't actually looked at the case myself, but they do drag on, unfortunately. But Roger, I can get more details in terms of where the delay is at, whether, in fact, we have even received all the information that we need. And it may be that we have or we haven't, and if we have, we've had to go back, get further clarification, or even ask for other medical experts to be involved.
It just seemed a bit surprising in that in the narrative it says it was established that the member is still employed. Lincoln College should have therefore have turned down the appeal as no pension decision was made. So I don't know. Just anyway, we'll let you chase, but
Yeah. So where people are still involved, they effectively have no right of appeal. So their employment has to be terminated, and that's when they make a claim to say, I should have been awarded ill health or not effectively. There is no entitlement because the employment's not terminated. So that one actually with Lincoln College, I would have said, let me yeah, we've got chased up with the employer. I'll find out more, Roger, because I would have said that would have been turned down straight away because the employer's not left, and therefore there is no entitlement to an ill health pension.
Okay, thank you.
But I'll
Sorry, excuse
please.
me, Roger, could I just interrupt? Just to say that we do actually have monthly meetings with the technical team at West Yorkshire to keep an eye on all IDRPs and check that progress is continuing to be made. I'm not sure, but this might be up to the 31st of September that this is reporting to, because it's the quarter end to the 31st of September. So we do on a monthly basis have meetings to ensure that there aren't any blockages and chasing is being done where required.
Right. So this might be late information. In other words, it may have progressed in the last 3 months.
Yeah, I seem to recall that it has, but Eunice will know better or not if this is up to the 30th of September, almost current.
It is up to the 30th of September, Joe, but I would have said that we have obtained up-to-date information as of now, but I think possibly that up-to-date information, which says to me that it's been chased up with the employer on the 16th of November, but I'm not sure why that would have been chased up. We will check with our technical team because, again, I would reiterate the fact that if that so it may be that they've now terminated the employment of that individual, but if that employment is not terminated, there is no right of appeal effectively because no decision's been made.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's still an employee.
We'll leave that with you.
Yeah. Okay. We'll investigate that one. Administration update. I think we've had some update on Prudential, which is
Eunice,
quite clear.
Eunice, sorry.
Sorry.
David he's got a question.
Excuse me, Eunice. Yeah, sorry, I'm coming back to the appeals, if I may.
Yeah.
It's only a point of clarification from my own. I may have asked this in the past, but on the appeal against the recipient of the death grant,
Yeah.
who decides what the answer is? If there's a dispute, so if someone's nominated and it's quite clear on the nomination, but then there's appeal, how and where does that progress to, may I ask?
The decision rests with our service centre manager and our pensioner services manager. So what normally happens is if there is a dispute, then we will gather information from all interested parties, and then on receipt of that information, we will endeavour to make a decision, and we give everybody the opportunity to challenge that decision as well. But it is made at officer level.
So the actual distribution of the benefits is actually delegated to officers at West Yorkshire.
It is, yeah.
Sorry, can I just butt in, please? Because I was actually involved in that one. So no, the work is done within West Yorkshire, but the decision letters are signed off by me. So I see the background that's been taken. They put a recommendation to me when reasoning why, but it's actually signed off by the fund.
Thank goodness for that.
Okay, that's more than I know then, Joe, because I thought we made all decisions.
No, it has to be a fund decision as opposed to our administrators, but you provide all the information.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Eunice, David's
sorry,
coming back.
All I was going to, the reason I ask the question is that the stage one is at employer level, isn't it? So, or isn't it, I mean, I can understand the fund, Lincolnshire fund at stage 2.
There's 2 stage one against the employer and one against the fund.
Yes, so sorry, I would get involved if it's a stage one against the fund. So if it is to do with the death grant, because that's at the discretion of the fund as to how that's allocated, that would then come to the fund. If it's something the employer's done, the stage ones go to the employer.
Sorry, one last question. Is there a stage two? There is still a stage two. Where would that go?
It'd go to Eunice.
Yes, that goes to Eunice. The stage two, we've appointed West Yorkshire to undertake the stage two. So they used to be done within legal services here. And we appointed, as a number of other funds, use West Yorkshire to do those as well.
I mean, just to kind of finish this one off, Eunice, this is a question to Joe. You know, because with another hat on, I get deeply involved in these with, but not alone. You know, it's always at least two trustees who sign off. Do you ever kind of, where do you go to if you're kind of not sure? Do you go to the legal, or do you ask for more information and what have you?
Yeah, if there's not enough.
A lot of things come out of the woodwork in these cases.
Absolutely, and you know, there are some that are incredibly tricky. So yeah, we've used legal services in the past. If there's not something that's quite clear cut, because often people will appeal when something actually is really quite clear cut. So once I've seen all the information, there'll be a recommendation from West Yorkshire. So they'll have looked at it from a technical aspect. I'll then look at that and see whether or not I agree or require more information. And if I'm still not content, then I would bring in legal services.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. So section 5 administration update. I think Prudential's been covered, so quite pleasing to hear. Really, we've not heard anything officially, but quite pleasing to hear from colleagues that there will be something coming out. But that just gives a breakdown of how many members retired and how many members actually had ABCs. So out of 530 members that retired in the quarter, there were 13 members that had ABCs. And most have been resolved other than the latest ones. But I am aware that issues still continue in terms of allocating contributions to members' accounts. So hopefully if they have got an action plan, then that's certainly progress.
Roger, can I just ask another question of you, Eunice? If I'm missing the background again, forgive me, but have we heard from the regulator at all on this? Has there been anything at all back in relation to all of the members, not just at Lincolnshire or at West Yorkshire, but nationally? Has there been nothing at all from them?
All we heard a while back was that we are monitoring the situation. That was their kind of line, really. And then since then, nothing.
And FCA have also been informed of the situation, but...
Who, Joe?
FCA.
FCA.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is that I find it astounding, personally, that there is not been more of a... This hasn't been escalated to a higher level. I don't mean it's not important, but than anything else is more important than anything else. But it involves a very big group of people, relatively speaking, and the regulator hasn't sort of commented.
I share your concerns and comments, Dave. It's disgraceful. Anyway,
sorry, Eunice. That's not. I mean, it's not directed in your direction.
No, and I agree entirely. The purpose for us to report to TPR was that we were hoping they would take some action. And as Prudential would be regulated by the FCA, then we would have thought maybe they would have done something as well. But it does seem strange that there's been no noise made at national level in terms of action against Prudential, because it's gone on for quite a long time.
Joe?
Yeah, it's just to add a bit more flavour to what Andrew said earlier about how it was raised through SCT, and it went to the LGPC, Local Government Pensions Committee, who discussed it with the chair of Scheme Advisory Board, and they had a joint meeting with Prudential ahead of Prudential appearing before the Scheme Advisory Board last month, just to cover the area, the areas that they covered there. So, kind of within the LGPS, it's gone to the highest level, but they were looking at there was a question as whether there was a regulatory breach for the non-publication of the financial statements, the publishing of the annual benefit statements, but that isn't a regulatory breach. As I say, they've got till end of March 2022. Concerns raised over the lack of reconciliation with employer returns, administering authorities, the worry that they've had to use employer returns for calculating annual allowance because the contributions haven't been fully recorded with Prudential. But they did say that there had been a slight improvement on disinvestment. So all that was discussed ahead of the meeting with Scheme Advisory Board. And it was agreed that there will be a joint statement coming out from from Prudential and Scheme Advisory Board in the coming weeks. But once we see the minutes from the Scheme Advisory Board meeting that was held on the 13th of December, then there'll be some more information perhaps that we can supply. So within the LGPS, it's gone to the highest level. But as Eunice has said, TPR have just said that they're monitoring it, and FCA have said a similar thing.
I mean, just to close it off, it sounds as though contributions, if they're not being allocated correctly, they're presumably not being invested correctly. So, Prudential will have a hell of a job kind of backtracking and putting in performance figures and what have you. I mean,
we are aware, Chair, that they have paid compensation out to people that have complained directly to them as well. And what they've said is that we will make good any loss of.
Yeah, I guess what worries me there, Eunice, is that it's all right for them to say that, but there'll be some members who are contributing who do not understand the investment vehicles and what have you, relying totally on Prudential, and the fact that the regulator just seems to have washed his hands of it, it just amazes me. But anyway, we can't do anything about it here. Joe again.
Sorry, just as hopefully a final point to make. We've actually got a meeting set up with Barnet Waddingham about looking at their service that they do for an AVC review. It might be moving off closing the door after the horse has bolted, or whatever the phrase is, but looking at what they can do and what the impact of that would be for members, how it's all done, to see whether or not that's something worthwhile that we would like to do as a fund. So we've got a meeting coming up, I think it's this month, on that.
Right.
So, and my last comment on this will be that I would expect a lot of funds that use Prudential to review their AVC provider as a result of this.
Excuse me, Roger. All I was going to say, Eunice, and obviously to you, Joe. I mean, I remember back to the day when Prudential were appointed, 1988.
Yep.
We go back to, and there was nationwide at the same time, because the Prudential didn't offer a deposit fund type investment vehicle, so we had to. But I can't ever remember the Prudential being subject to a review for AVC provider in terms of it. They've been pretty much running without us. I'm not saying we haven't been monitoring as a fund, but it's quite similar, I would suggest. It's not just Lincolnshire.
Well, I think, just going back, that was a Hyman's recommendation, and Hyman's recommended it to a number of pension schemes that they are actuaries and investment advisors to. And
does all I was going to say, Joe, so Barnet Waddingham do still offer an AVC arrangement that we say we?
No, I think this is advice.
Oh, it's advice.
So in other words, do you want to continue, forgive me, Joe, do you want to continue with Prudential, or do you want to go to A, B, C, D or E? I mean, remember, Prudential were appointed by a number of local authorities. Equitable Life were appointed by a lot of others. And Equitable Life, we know the disaster there.
Yeah, that's correct. They will do a review for us and look at what the market is, and the market since 1988 has shrunk somewhat in suppliers that will do AVCs for LGPS funds now. So it's doing that, and in my time in the fund since '99, we've never done a review. So, but as I say, I think most local authorities do use Prudential, but I think the market is incredibly limited. I think West Yorkshire use Scottish Widows as well. So what we will look at with Barnet Waddingham is what would be the benefit of doing that. Is it too late? Are they actually improving now and we'll get another 20, 30, 40 years of excellent service, particularly if everyone decides they want to move out of Prudential to another supplier that then potentially takes on too much. So it's balancing everything up, but that will be part of the discussion we'll have with Barnet's as to what's the most appropriate review, etc., and take it from there.
And just to say, Joe, we did have a review, what I'd call a partial review, because some guy came from Prudential and gave a presentation, and he talked about the performances and, you know, the KPIs and what have you. 4 years ago?
Yeah, that's probably more part of the ongoing monitoring as opposed to review as to whether or not we would change them. But yes, no, I do recall that.
Could I just add, just to clarify what my point was really, is that for all those years, Prudential were the market leader. It wasn't that we looked at the market and the Prudential were always at the top end. Their support services were second to none. There was no requirement really, in our view, I think, to say why should we be looking elsewhere, because there was probably very few even then. This is quite an eye-opener really, isn't it, from what they were to what's happened. And it's good to hear, if I may say, that Barnet Waddingham is going to undertake a review then, let's suggest.
Right, we'll close that one off now. Thank you. Right, Eunice.
Yeah, I will carry on. Thank you. Staffing. I think this is something that you wanted some additional information on, and we have attached a structure flow chart to go with this section. But we have been undertaking recruitment for a number of months now to replace people that have left or retired, as well as recruiting to new posts. Whilst we have recruited to a number of posts, particularly senior posts, we still have an ongoing recruitment campaign to recruit senior pensions officers. And whilst my report says 4 senior pensions officers, that figure has now changed because just before Christmas, we had a internal review in terms of what our resource, particularly within our service centre, should look like. Considering workloads, KPIs, McLeod, etc. So we're actually looking for more than 4 senior pensions officers, probably more nearer 9. And we will be looking for a number of pensions officer appointments as well. And that's probably looking around 5, I think. So we will continue to add resources. And obviously accept the fact that we need to do more with our KPIs and certainly with the McLeod, which is a big piece of work that's coming up. So
Eunice, sorry to butt in. If you're recruiting 9 pension officers and all this recruitment going on, I probably asked this at the last meeting. Does that mean the charges to the Lincolnshire Fund are going to increase compared to budget? The question what was budgeted, I suppose, but.
Right, can I answer that at the end when we come to the budget bit at the end of the report? So I will cover that. Yeah. Okay. So if say the structure chart gives you a full breakdown of our structure, the different sections we have and the teams where we've got vacancies, etc. So not many vacancies shown now, which is quite good news, really. Audits. We had an audit undertaken by Bradford Council's internal audit team. This was on life existence or life certificates. The overall opinion of internal audit was that the controls for the identified risks is good. Most of the risks were found to be effectively managed. control environment is largely as expected, but they have made a recommendation for some enhancement to support our business objectives. So 3 recommendations were made, which we're looking to address. One of the recommendations was that we move Lincolnshire Pension Fund high risk category into our regular pattern of issuing life certificates. So that is planned, and that will happen before the end of the financial year. And the high risk categories basically are those that live abroad. And within the fund, there are 330 members living abroad. So we will be before the end of March, we will be sending out life certificates to those members deemed as a high risk. Current technical issues, that's attached. I don't really intend covering much on there, other than there was a question asked about SCAPE in terms of what that discount rate represents. So SCAPE really doesn't impact on LGPS to any great extent. It's more the method used for unfunded schemes, and as we're a funded scheme, it doesn't really apply to us except for actuarial factors. So when GAD etc. Issue factors, then they use SCAPE as their means to engage with that and change the factors on that, and that's all that it's used for within the LGPS. But it's more how it's used in the other unfunded schemes, and that effectively is to set contribution rates and what the contribution rate should be. Web registrations, again.
I must say, I was just interested what it actually stood for, what SCAPE actually, you know. I'm sure Joe's going to answer now, or Eunice going to answer.
Yeah, Lisa will help me out here.
Yep, sorry. Yeah, so it stands for superannuation contributions adjusted for past experience.
Never got that, thank you.
It's one of these actuarial terms, I'm sure. Sorry, so section 7, web registrations, that gives you a breakdown of the different categories and how many are registered for online. So again, that might go with Roger's questions at the beginning in terms of we haven't got big numbers registered for online, but we will regularly push all our membership because we as we engage with individuals, one of our kind of longer term plans is start using the My Pension portal to engage with members through that rather than through paper format. So we will try and get numbers increased, and certainly before the next ABS is due. We are planning, pensioners at the moment stands at 20%, but we are planning as from now really right into pensioners, inviting them to register for My Pension, because the plan is to issue P60s online this year, similar to what we did for active members. And again, I don't know what kind of take-up we'll get, but it will kind of beg the question as well in terms of how many people actually need a P60 at the end of the year, because obviously most people are interested in is getting the pension into the bank account every month, so they'll know each month what pensions they get. But obviously some people do need the P60s for different purposes. But it'll be interesting to see how that figure changes over the next few months.
Can I just ask a question on that, Eunice?
Budget.
On the, I mean, take for example the P60s.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do that, will it be kind of, this is what we're going to do, and therefore, you know, this is the only place it will be, or will you ask pensioners to subscribe to it?
No, we will ask pensioners to subscribe to it. If they say they still want a paper copy, then we will still issue a paper copy.
Right. Okay.
So it's not a forced, it's not enforced. It'll be by choice, but they'll have to make a positive election.
Right. Okay.
Shared service budget. So this is our budget and forecast for this financial year. Our cost per member at period 6 was quoted at £13.84 per member against a budgeted cost of £14.67. Because of all the recruitment, because of filling the vacancies, etc., that £13.84 now currently, as of this month, stands at £14.61. So it's still below our original budget, but it certainly will increase because of the additional resourcing, etc., that is now in place. So we always knew that was going to happen, and each, I would say, year really, because this has gone on for a few years where we've had a new structure, but that was never fully implemented. And now, obviously, because we're recruited into additional posts because of additional workloads as well, then that increases the budget as well. So yeah, the answer to the earlier question was the budget will the forecast currently stands at £14.61 and not £13.84, which was period 6. £14.61 is at period 8. And lastly, just to mention the LAPF awards, which didn't happen because of the lockdown or because of the new variant. Really, I think everything kind of got cancelled. So that's still to be arranged at some future date. So happy to take any additional questions.
Eunice, thanks very much. Are there any further questions? Dave.
Thank you. Thanks, Eunice. If I may ask one, rather just for my own information, I have no idea what it is. Perhaps I've just missed it before. On your KPIs, Eunice, a pension saving statement, I've noticed there was one of those round there where the pensions estimates are. It was done on time, there's no pressure, but I'm not sure what a pension saving statement is.
Yeah, I can tell you what a pension saving statement is, and I'm fact that you've raised it, I'm surprised there was only one actually. I would have expected to be more. So a pension saving statement is where members breach their annual allowance, lifetime allowance, and we're obliged to issue them with a pension saving statements in terms of showing them how much they've breached by, because potentially they have a tax liability and they need to take some further action. So anybody that breaches their allowances will get a pension saving statement. There probably only is one actually, because this one goes up to end of September. The actual deadline for issuing pension saving statements is the 6th of October.
Yeah. I think that's the answer.
Yeah, so I think the only reason I picked it up because the one above it was highlighted yellow, wasn't it? Pensions estimates, and it was not. It was one of your. You didn't quite make that.
Yeah.
And it was only when I looked at this time, and I was just interested. The other one, Eunice, is can I just again ask? And I think I've asked this before. Where we look at membership numbers, we've now got 2,500 frozen members. The number of undecideds is reducing, but the number of frozen members keeps going up. Are they just members who have got a refund option? And that's all they can have?
They are, and potentially all they can have is a refund unless they get other employment, in which case they may want to transfer out to them. So that could be a reason why people are not making decisions straight away.
All I was going to ask, the obvious, do we go back to them regularly then and say, look, you've got a frozen refund of, I don't know, £500. What do you want to do with it?
We do undertake an exercise. We did a bulk exercise a couple of years ago, and I would say it's probably due again to go back and try and contact these and ask them what they want to do with that. But if you remember, we do, just before they come up to the 5-year period in which they have to claim their refunds, we open deposit accounts for these members, and that's why, if you remember the previous reports on deposit accounts, we've got quite a few now where we put them in there. And again, this is just to ensure tax liabilities, etc., for protecting the members' tax liabilities. So just before they get up to their 5-year kind of period, we will contact them and we will ask them if they want the refunds paying, and where we can't trace them, where because as you say, some of these are very small refunds, and whilst people might not claim them straight away, since they've left, they might have moved or not aware they've got pensions. So we may not always trace everybody, and that's why we open deposit accounts.
I'm pleased you raised that, Dave, because my worry is that you remember the problem we had, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, outstanding leavers, you know, where we'd shot up, and I just wondered whether it was a regurgitation of that again.
Well, the only reason, Eunice, I'm not picking it. It was the fact that it was, bizarrely again, it's just that it's got 2,500. It was, had it been, you know, 2,330, I may not. It was the fact that it was 2,500 that took my. So I'm not. That's purely a matter of fact. But we do monitor. When I say we, but you are monitoring that number, and there is a process.
There is.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's really why I just raised it with you again.
Just going back to the pension savings statement, where I now understand that they're kind of the annual and lifetime allowances. Presumably, well, do you as a pension team, I know you can't give advice, but presumably you assist those members that fall into that category, because, I mean, as you've rightly said, it's going to be more than one. There's going to be a lot more than that. But I'm just wondering what sort of help you give them, not advice.
Yeah, it's a very complex area, and it's something we as joint partners did touch on earlier in the year in terms of what independent advice information we can. I mean, with the pension savings statements, we do send lots of information out, but it's a complex area where the members understand, and we advise them to get independent financial advice. But we have discussed, and probably this year we will pursue setting up something with either one of the actuarial firms or somebody else that's kind of willing to give independent information advice to these members in terms of what actually it means for them. So that I think we'll pursue next year. But up to press, we've kind of stayed away from the subject really, in terms of not getting embroiled with personal situations, because we will never know what individual personal circumstances are, and we've no kind of intention really to gather that kind of information to be able to give proper meaningful advice to members, because if they've got income or other assets elsewhere, then you know it does complicate things. But we're hoping to or some information sessions next year.
Any other questions? Joe?
Not a question, but just really to add to that, because I know I've been involved in a fair few annual allowance questions.
I imagine you would be.
And you know, there are a couple of really good experts within the West Yorkshire team that are very helpful, not giving advice. That's very clear that it's not their place to give advice, but talking through and explaining what's required and what they need to do. So you know, I think whilst because it's such an expert area, there is just
Right.
a few people that can help, but they do and have done.
No? Do we, I presume we don't recommend IFAs, do we? Do we give them a list of IFAs or give them any information on that at all?
No, there isn't. It's something that's been discussed as part of national frameworks, actually, as to whether or not there could be a list of financial advisors, as there are for legal services. There's a national LGPS framework that you can call off. The difficulty is, because the LGPS is so different to so many other schemes, actually, how do you find out who the best IFAs are? How do you monitor them, ensure that they're up to date with all their LGPS knowledge, etc.? So I think it was just seen as too difficult a task to be able to do. But as Eunice said, we have had discussions at the shared service meeting about whether we as a shared service partnership would want to engage, be it, say, because the benefits consultants, you know, Barnett Waddingham will always happily offer advice at a cost, and do put on presentations for, you know, the employers are able to use them to put on presentations for high earners to explain certain things.
And Mercer's have been pursuing us as well. So it's not just Barnett Waddingham.
Who's been pursuing you?
Mercer.
Oh, Mercer. They're
Yeah.
expensive. Rest assured. Right, anything else on this item? No? Well, we've had a pretty good debate on a number of things there. So the board note the report is the recommendation. Happy? Thank you. So agenda item 7, which is a presentation, and I think that's from Amy. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. That's me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Over to you.
Hi. Have you shared my slides, or is everyone just going to follow the information pack? Because I can currently just see 2 of myself on the screen.
The presentation should just be coming through now, Amy. I apologise.
Perfect.
It takes a few moments, but hopefully you can see it and everyone in the room can. So, yeah, if you want to make a start, and give me a shout and I'll change the slides.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm Amy. I'm relatively new to West Yorkshire Pension Fund, and I'm the Employee Relations Manager. So today I'm just going to give you a bit of an update on where we are as a team, but also just to give you some information about the work we've been doing to support your employers. So if you could just hit the next slide, please. Perfect. Okay, so brief agenda for the session today is as I say, an update on the team and what we look like now, and I'll talk to you a bit about the activity that we've been doing. I'll talk to you in a bit of detail about the employer training that we've been doing over the past few months. Then I'll cover a bit on outstanding leavers and our current position with the outstanding leavers and some of the things that we have been doing to bring those numbers down and tackle that. And then to conclude, I'll talk to you a little bit about a new event that's going to be available to all employers next month. So that's a save the date. If you could go to the next slide. Okay, so Eunice briefly touched on our restructure that we've had. So historically, the employee relations team was combined with our communications team. So that's now been separated out, meaning that we have essentially more resource to focus on employee related activities, because our comms responsibilities are now part of the IT and projects team. So that is just a brief snapshot of what we look like. So within the employee relations team, we've got 5 employer pension fund representatives. So they are the members of staff who work very, very closely with your employers. So support all your employers through their responsibilities, provide all the training, be their point of contact essentially, and also the pension fund reps will have interactions with members for things like serious ill health support, and also some of the presentations as well that we do are delivered by the pension fund reps. We've got 2 support officers in the team that support essentially the work that the PFRs do. Okay, if you could go to the next slide. So we have had ongoing recruitment on the team. So the recruitment has taken a little bit longer than we would have liked. So we have been working with 2 vacancies for quite some time, but we have successfully appointed 2 new PFRs, which you can see there. So we've got Richard, who has joined us now. So when these slides were put together, he hadn't joined us, but he's joined us this week. So he comes with 20 years experience in various customer service roles. It has a really good background in public sector pension schemes. So he's worked with the LGPS and other blue light schemes as well. He's got a really good background in learning and development. So he should be a real asset to the training side of what we do. And then we've got Ahmed as well, who's also joined us. Ahmed's come with a really strong background in relationship management, and he has worked with the LGPS and Civica as well. So we're really excited that we've now got a full team in place, and hopefully 2 really good candidates to be joining our team. If we go to the next slide. Okay, so obviously, given the circumstances that we find ourselves in over the past 18 months, we've had to change the way in which we deliver a lot of our communications and engagement to both members and employers. So all of our employer member support that's delivered on the team has been moved to an online delivery. So now everything is being delivered via Microsoft Teams. So that is, through the use of video calling like we're doing today. This has actually brought a lot of positives and efficiencies, I think, to what we are able to deliver to employers, because we're not restricted in terms of room sizes. We can offer sessions at various different times. We can record sessions so that employers can watch them on demand. Employers don't need to commit to, half a day's travel to attend a workshop. So actually, in a lot of ways, moving to online training and support has been a really positive thing, and it's meant that we can actually offer more support than ever before, because we don't have to go through the process of booking rooms and having those restrictions in terms of capacity. So in a lot of ways, it's been a really positive thing. All of our training that we have done has been recorded and is at the moment hosted on our website. So I've included that link there on the slide, so you can see a history of all of the training presentations that we do, and also the slides are all there as well. So employers can watch those presentations on demand if they're not able to make the live sessions. If we go to the next slide, please. Okay, so we have recently created a YouTube channel, and eventually we'll move all of our training videos over to the YouTube channel. And the intention there is as well to develop other useful tools for members and employers, interactive guides and videos and things like that will be useful to obviously both members and employers. So like I say, it's quite a new thing that we've just created, and we will be intending to launch that over the coming weeks and months. So watch this space on the YouTube channel. Next slide, please. Okay, so this really is just to provide you with a bit of detail on the most recent training that we have been working on with employers. So obviously we've got the the valuation coming up in a few months. So since I think we started this season around September time, we have been offering training to employers, which is all geared around preparing the employer and their data for the upcoming valuation. So there's been a real focus on educating employers about exactly what a leaver is, what they need to do when they get a leaver, how they fill in the leaver form, how they can get the most out of the employer portal. We've also done a session on the importance of data in connection with evaluation, and then a recap session on understanding CPP. So the idea behind this sequence of training was that employers would attend all of these sessions, meaning that they would be in the best place possible to deal with the valuation that's approaching. Now, the sessions have been hugely popular, so much so that for the first season that we did, so ordinarily what we do, we'll do a morning session for each of the topics, and then we'll repeat the cycle and we'll do an afternoon session directly, after, to give people who work different patterns the opportunity to join. The sessions were so popular that in the first cycle we ended up doing morning and afternoon. So we've actually repeated these topics. It will be 3 times to give as many people the opportunity to join us for this training. There is still the chance for employers to book on the final few sessions of this season of training, and they can book that through our Book It Be platform. So it's a self-service booking facility that they use. It's really simple. The next season of training is going to focus on the year-end process, so preparing employers for everything they have to do in terms of the year-end file and all the blocks and quarantines that they'll have to deal with after the year-end process. So that will be the initiative for the next season of training that we'll do. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a little bit of feedback about the training. So if we could, perfect. If after every training session, we send out a electronic survey to all of the delegates. So we've got an overall satisfaction score of 94.4%, which is really, really good. We ask things like, how did you find the booking process? How did you find the quality of the content? How did you find the explanation and the trainer's delivery? All those sorts of things. How did you find the length of the webcast? So we're really trying to get a good picture of whether or not the training meets the needs of the employers or not. And the feedback is always really excellent, outstanding feedback. You can see some of the comments there that I've taken. It's always really, really well received. We are finding that the employers are really happy with the shorter training sessions that we offer now, the 30-minute sessions. So feedback's always really good. Next slide, please. Okay. So obviously, as well as the training, we do a lot of other things to support employers. So since July, we've introduced what we're calling an activity log. So the idea with the activity log is to track the activity that's happening on the team, to track the kind of interactions that we are having with employers, track the employers that are interacting with us. So it will give us an idea of what kind of support employers are contacting us for, and then also which employers are periodically getting in touch, which is a good thing, because obviously that means they're engaged with us, and if they've got any problems, they're asking us questions to resolve them before larger problems are potentially created down the line. So the activity log is a new sort of initiative that we've just introduced. So I've included there a summary of the activity from July. So you can see there we've done 5 separate employer one-to-one training sessions, and this is just specifically for obviously Lincolnshire employers. So that one-to-one training would be, for example, if a PFR felt that an employee needed training that was outside of the advertised webinars that we've got, if they're having a particular problem with something, or often one-to-one trainings are with payroll providers, because they do cause some challenges sometimes. So this is one-to-one training that we've carried out with individual employers, that generally is delivered through Microsoft Teams. Employer support, that would be things like maybe an employer might have a question around a flexible retirement process or an ill health retirement process. It's not quite a training session, but it is more of an extended call or an extended video call where one of the PFRs will support an employer through a particular problem. Then obviously we've got the webinars there. So we've completed 20 webinars since July. They're across the board. Obviously the webinars are available to all of our employers across all of the funds.
Amy, can I just ask you a question on your employer relations activity? It's a pity that Jo's gone, because she knows that one of my objectives is to ensure that everyone pays their contributions and data submissions on time. Do you get involved in that at all with the employer one-to-one training or employer support? Because, you know, we still have each quarter a number who don't pay their contributions on time. And to me, that is bread and butter stuff. You know, they should do it.
Absolutely. From my point of view, I think if you have any problems with employers who aren't doing that, or our finance team are identifying employers that aren't fulfilling that requirement, then perhaps we need to have a more joined up approach when dealing with those types of problems. A lot of the support and training that we are doing is very much from an operational point of view. You know, are they filling in the forms? Have they filled in the leaver forms? It's that side of stuff that this summary relates to.
Right. I think Claire just wants to make a comment. She's probably going to tell me off.
No, not at all. It was just to say, where we do identify employers and we believe that they aren't making submissions because they've got problems with understanding what they need to do or things like that, they are Josh will pick those up with Kaylee, and then there will be that sort of interaction from the employer relations side with the employer to make sure that they understand what they're doing and support them if they don't know what is to be done. So we are feeding that through, and where appropriate, then employers are being referred for additional support and advice to help them with that.
So hopefully I'll achieve my objective one day.
Possibly.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I think we got to liaison meeting. So that will be, that's for example, regular meetings with payroll providers, for example, who do cause us a number of challenges. So it's just to really keep an eye on payroll providers or larger employers, to make sure that they are doing what they need to do and support them through any challenges that they've got. And also it gives them the opportunity as well to raise any questions or concerns with us. We've been working quite closely with EPM at the moment, doing a lot of meetings with that payroll provider. So hopefully we'll see some improvements from that payroll provider soon. And then finally there we've got member support. So that's for example, if somebody has a serious ill health, the PFRs will arrange a meeting to go through their figures and help them understand the different implications of their their potential benefits for them and their family. So obviously historically those meetings used to take place face to face, but of course they're being delivered online now as well. Okay, if you go to the next slide.
Just a minute, Amy. I think Jo wants to ask a question.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Just where you're having the discussions and conversations with the payroll providers, are the underlying employers made aware of any of these issues? Because obviously, at the end of the day, it's the employer that has that responsibility and may need that nudge in doing their contract management, etc. So I just wanted to make sure that employers are made aware when there are issues with their payroll providers.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't. We're not at that point yet. I don't think with EPM, but that is certainly that will be certainly be the next step if certain things that we've agreed aren't delivered. So yeah, that's absolutely on my radar, and that will definitely happen if we can't make progress with the payroll providers. Okay, so outstanding leavers. So in addition to the work that we do with the training and the supporting employers, we do also take a proactive approach as much as possible in working with employers to ensure that they keep on top of their leavers and that they are addressing their outstanding leavers. So obviously each month the employers send us a monthly file. Each month our finance team will produce a list for every single employer so that they can see which members we are expecting a leaver form for. Now, if employers aren't completing those leavers on a monthly basis, obviously that creates a backlog, and that's where my team come in. So Kaylee, who's the PFR for Lincolnshire at the moment, and obviously she will remain the PFR, but with additional help hopefully soon. Kaylee will look at the outstanding leavers as a whole, and establish which employers are potentially building up a backlog and which employers are where the numbers aren't going down each month. So she'll identify a group of employers or a group of payroll providers to work with each month to target the outstanding leavers. I think Kaylee has a very good understanding of who generally is on top of the leavers and who isn't. So each month she will touch base with certain employers and payroll providers to provide them with a full list of what's outstanding, and also work with them to ensure that those are coming down. And it might be that they might have staffing issues, so it might just be a case of having a conversation to say, look, next month we expect that these will be cleared, and that's fine. But obviously the problem comes when next month is here and the leavers haven't come down. It could be a training issue, in which case that's where Kaylee would potentially provide that one-to-one training for the employer and go through some cases with them to help them with their outstanding leavers. So if you go to the next slide, please. So you can see here, this is what the outstanding leavers have looked like over the past 12 months. Okay, so if you just click again, it should bring up another there's an animation on this slide. If you just click.
I can't bring it up.
Is it?
Sorry.
Is it not? Good? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so outstanding leavers as at December was sitting at around 750, which compared to the number of active members in the scheme is very minimal. Okay, so I think it works out at about 3.3%, and that's what should pop up on the slide, but it's not playing. So you can see that obviously the leavers have come down in the summer, and obviously that's as a result of the work that Kaylee's been doing, which is great. You can see that obviously in September there's been a spike, but that is to be expected. Oh, here we go. that's to be expected, especially with schools and educational authorities. There always tends to be a lot of leavers around September, August time. So we are now just obviously working to bring those numbers down. Obviously, these slides were put together last year, so I know that the data that we've just ran for January, the leaves have come down by 100. So it's all moving in the right direction. And of course, throughout the next few months, there's going to be obviously more than just Kaylee working on this project. So it's only obviously it's going to improve as we put more resource into this. But 3.3% of the total active membership is I think is a really good position to be in with the outstanding leavers. So if you just click,
Amy.
Yeah.
I mean, given the run up to the valuation, 31st of March. I mean, I'm just looking at the Lincolnshire figures, which I know were high in October and are coming down, but we have a bit of a track record of this being a problem in the past. So hopefully, Kaylee will sort Lincolnshire CC out and get it right down before 31st of March.
Yeah, absolutely. The figures for January, total figures 656, and the council is 231. So that has come right down, and obviously we will continue to focus our efforts on bringing those numbers down over the next few months.
Okay.
All right. If you go to the next slide. So this is a summary of December's figures. So you can see these are the employers, payroll providers that Kaylee often works with. So the numbers in the brackets there are showing how many employers are with that particular payroll provider. So by working with these payroll providers, it means that we're covering 53% of the total number of employers when we're doing this work. And like I say, going forward, we will have obviously more resource to put into this project, because of obviously we've got the recent appointments, but also, as I've mentioned, the figures have already come down from December anyway. So it's definitely positive, and it's definitely moving in the right direction. We know we've got a problem with EPM. You can see there, education, partnership management. They are a problem, and like I say, we are working with them. And then if it does get to a point where we need to involve the employees, we absolutely will do that. But overall, everything is moving in the right direction with the outstanding leavers. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is just to touch on member engagement. So we are continuing to offer the pre-retirement courses that are run by Affinity Connect, our pre-retirement partner. They continue to be delivered online. Again, they've been really, really popular. Affinity are constantly having to put additional sessions on to accommodate demand. They've recently extended their course and added some content on wellbeing, lifestyle and estate planning. All of the courses are available to all members, and they can book those through our website. Affinity have delivered 15 courses during 2012. I don't think there's any plans at the moment to move those back to physical in-person courses. I did attend a course just for information recently, and I was really impressed with the content and the delivery. I thought it was really good. So they are a really valuable resource for members. Next slide, please. Okay, so this brings me to the end of my update. This is to make you aware of a new event that we will be advertising very shortly. So this is going to be aimed at all of our employers across all of our funds. So we're calling this the employer engagement, and this is essentially very similar to the Leaf meeting that used to take place for specifically just your employers. The event is going to be aimed at obviously people who deal with pensions from a practical point of view. So it will give us the opportunity to get out key messages about best practice. So we're going to be focusing quite heavily on discretions and the importance of having discretions policies in place, and really break down the mandatory discretions and what they mean, and how important it is to have those. We're going to have a update on My Pension, a demonstration of how that works, and how employers can market that to their staff. And then also we've got a guest speaker from True Bearing, so they will come and talk about how they can work with employers to support members. So True Bearing are quite similar in a way to Affinity Connect. They offer pre-retirement courses, they offer financial wellbeing sessions. I think they do also offer training on annual allowance as well, which has been touched on earlier today. So they do offer really useful sessions for members. They're free of charge, and then obviously it's advertised to members via the employer. So they're going to come and talk about the different things that they can do. So that's going to be delivered online, and that's going to be delivered on the 24th of February. Invites for that will be going out in the next couple of weeks. So that's our employer engagement forum, and that actually brings me to the end of my update. I've included the contact details there, relevant contact details for us. So obviously the employer relations team, the communications team, which is now separate, that I mentioned earlier today, and then obviously at the moment the pension fund rep for Lincolnshire is Kaylee. She's doing a great job of looking after all of the employees in Lincolnshire, but that is obviously going to be you're going to see an additional PFR pick up some of the employees in Lincolnshire as well. So that'll be happening over the next few weeks. So does anybody have any questions about anything that I've covered there?
Any further questions? Oh, we've been asking them as we've gone through. Anything else? No.
No.
No. Amy, thank you very much for that presentation. Very helpful.
No problem.
Thank you. So in terms of the recommendations, we note the presentation and report. Okay. Thank you. Item 8 is the data quality report. Is this you, Eunice, or Lisa? Eunice?
Happy to take it, or if Lisa wants to take it off my hands, I'm happy to pass it over. I'll take that. So this is the latest data quality report, which was produced in November last year. So the current data scores for Lincolnshire, common data score is 95.78%, and scheme specific score is 84.38%. I will refer you at this stage to Appendix A, which gives previous quarters comparisons. Again, it answers one of the questions submitted, that it gives you something to compare against in terms of how that score looks. Page 7 on the appendix gives you the comparisons going back over a period of a few quarters. So you'll see that there's not any major fluctuations in the data scores. And I'll go through some of the data issues that have been identified. Addresses, missing addresses, they represent quite a big chunk of membership, really, in terms of we're looking at overall 3,164 members with addresses missing. Out of those, 2,370 are deferred members. The rest are kind of the preserved refunds that we mentioned earlier, where we don't have a current address for. So we do regular, and again, it's mentioned earlier, part of the appendix in terms of all the different actions, all the different measures, all the different steps we have in place to look at our data quality on an ongoing basis. But certainly for addresses, that's an area which is really difficult to control. And again, possibly going online will address some of these issues, because people have a habit of moving around and not telling us, and that's why no sooner do we trace some members than we get others where we have addresses missing. So it's an ongoing cycle, really. Whereas if people are registered on my pension, they're less likely to change their email addresses. So at least we will still maintain contact with those members if they've registered, and potentially there is a facility for them to update the addresses themselves directly on the system as well. So hopefully, I'm hoping that will make some improvement towards this constant cycle of losing contact with members. I'm really only going to focus on the big numbers, to be honest, because the other smaller numbers, like missing earnings, care benefits, etc., they are to do with kind of work in the system. So where workers come in, leavers have been, where we've received notification of leavers, we've not yet processed those cases, then some of those records will have missing earnings, missing care benefits, etc. So when we get around to processing those cases, then those errors will be rectified. But again, obviously there'll always be work in the system, so those scores will never be kind of 100% on that, because work just carries on, really. So in terms of the big numbers, the next big number, if you're looking down in the appendix on page 7 on that table where it shows the movement as well, is count of no national insurance contributions or GMP. So again, that's kind of quite a big number. I'm quite hopeful that we do have GMPs for these members on the records, albeit possibly not in the place that we're looking for it, or not in the place that our reports are looking for it. So they may well be held elsewhere in a different record type, or potentially just on paper in the documents, where they're held just on documents. And again, this kind of will be because of the way data, or because when the data came in from the previous provider, that information just wasn't there on the members' computer record, but it's there on the members' paper record. And obviously no one will have the time really to go through every member's record, look through all the documentation, find the GMP, and then update the member's record to get rid of that particular error. It's a massive resource to be able to do that with some of these errors. What we're exploring for that is whether we can see the GMP, and again, we've got some of our officers working with our more experienced staff, looking to see where else GMP information might be held, and then adapting the report if that is the case. Or alternatively, this has only just recently been discussed with our IT, is that potentially we may look at, and this is subject to costs, we may potentially look at seeing what's out there in the market in terms of any software that might be able to scan documents and pick up keywords like GMP. And if that's the case, then that certainly helps us in a big way, where we, rather than some human person sat there looking through every page of the document, if we can get it some software to be able to do that, then we can pick off some of these errors and focus on that and getting that information in the right place. So all I can say really, just watch this space. So we're looking at that on two fronts. Count of missing pension. That has got quite a high number, although it has gone down, it is still quite a high number. Again, where the current value of the pension is missing. Again, our IT team are looking at that to see how they can populate that field to be able to either eliminate or reduce this error. And again, in my opinion, that should be doable really, because if we are paying a pension, we know what pension we're paying, and surely the current pension should be 12 times whatever gross monthly pension we're paying. Might be looking at it simplistically, but I'm sure we'll be able to look at addressing that data field. Start date inconsistent is another big number, 4,800. And that again goes back to receiving data from the previous provider in terms of if that start date wasn't recorded correctly, either because members had a transfer in, because some systems you recorded transfers on a different screen and not on the service record, or not in all the different places that we're looking for the start date, because our report looks at consistent start date in that we're expecting the same start date to be in 3, 4, 5 different places, and these errors obviously show that that is not the case. So again, it's kind of whether we can automate that even more to reduce that error. And the other two are GMP errors as well. So there's quite a number of data issues that I think we can make progress on. And whilst our data improvement plan, again, if you go down further, page 9 onwards, there is a timeline for each of those errors in terms of what our deadline is, and we've deliberately not set tight timescales for these, because obviously these are not errors that can be fixed overnight. They will involve quite a lot of resources, and it's a case of what do you balance in terms of if you focus your energies on this, then something else has to give. So whilst timescales are quite extensive in some of those, we have already started work on looking at the big, as I say, the big tickety numbers really, and hopefully in the next report, touch wood, I'm not making any promises, but certainly touch wood, I hope to see a big improvement in data scores, because we've found solutions to some of those issues. So I don't really want to spend too long on that, if that's okay, but happy to take questions.
Any questions, David?
Yeah, all I was going to ask you, Eunice, is this, that, I mean, this is I'm obviously we're interested in Lincolnshire, that's why we're here, isn't it? But you've got other funds, haven't you, that I'm assuming have got similar challenges for you?
Yeah, absolutely. If not worse on at least one of the funds.
Yes. Well, all I was going to say, you don't then look or planning to put a dedicated resource into this project or into this exercise, you're saying it's as and when, or when resources allow. Is that how you're going to look?
No. As I mentioned, we have already started work on this. In terms of looking at the big numbers really, so that work's already started, and hopefully we will gain some benefit from that. What we can't do is dedicate staff resource where someone has to look at each and every one of those errors manually and go through the members file, because each file has hundreds and hundreds of pages. Not everyone, but some certainly have, where they've got long service, they'll have hundreds of pages, and finding the relevant information will take quite a long time, and it's just not cost effective, to be honest. And again, in terms of what benefit it has, because again, remembering the fact that when we undertake a event on a member's record, that's the time really that we'll look at the member's record in thoroughness. So when we come to work out a benefit because the member's left, or whether there's a transfer in or some other action, then as a result of looking at that case, those errors will be picked up. But what we don't want to do or can't afford to do really is dedicate resource to do that full time all the time, because the a long time doing it that way.
Eunice, I mean, that sort of, I can understand why you're making that comment, but if the pensions minister heard you say that, I don't think he'd be too happy, because, you know, he keeps encouraging everyone on this, the pension dashboards. And, I mean, Joe knows, I regard that as a low priority, because we need to get our own house in order first. But it just worries me, and you know, we've been talking about this data improvement plan now for a couple of years, and okay, you know, we're now at 84%, but we just seem to be stagnating. And I mean, one area that those I was going to raise the question of the missing current pensions, but also the missing annual allowance calculations. That worries me to some extent, because does that mean that some of these members could face a high tax bill in years to come?
No, nothing. It's got nothing to do with that at all. What that is basically is a field which stores information to be able to produce the ABS for the next year. So it always looks at the previous year's information to compare then whether they would have breached that or not. But again, some of these issues are because we've not processed the members' levers or information yet in terms of any benefits that they might be entitled to. So these will be potentially not active members. These will be members that have where we've received lever notifications and we've not been able to process those cases yet. So when we start doing that, those fields will be populated.
Okay, all right.
But sorry, Roger, just taking your point about pension dashboard and getting data up to date. And I agree with you. And again, going back to my point about focusing on the high ticket numbers, we will or should see a much bigger improvement in the data score. And then we're only left with really the small numbers, which are because of work in the system. And, you know, no fund will have 100% data accuracy, because it just doesn't happen because of work in the system, and then things like address changes, etc., which every fund has an issue with.
Yeah, even I'd accept that. Jerry?
Yeah, Eunice, just a couple of things. I mean, obviously you're increasing resources, so I don't know if that will help. I appreciate those resources aren't specifically for these issues, but I guess that might give more time for other people to look at those issues. And the only other thing on the annual allowance, it's such a massive increase. Is that just a timing issue or anything particular?
No, it's not anything in particular. It is just a timing issue. It's still, I think, was it about 300? It's still a relatively low number, to be honest. But it's just timing. Yeah, it'll next time round again. Probably again because we process in levers for valuation, etc. I would expect that number to go down.
Anything else? No. Okay, thanks, Eunice.
Roger?
We'll note the report. Sorry.
One question, I think, coming up.
Mark?
Roger?
Yes, sorry, Mark.
Oh yeah, just one thing on this. I mean, I think what might be useful for me, is to sort of understand the context of this in terms of numbers, because, for instance, we have no national insurance contributions, 6,381 records. Now, if the total number of national insurance records is 10,000, then 6,381 is a big number. If it's 100,000 or 200,000, then all of a sudden that it's understanding the context. So it might be interesting to know for some of these bigger numbers, what percentage of the overall total that represents, because if it's 1% or under 1%, then it provides a bit more context. If it's 10%, then it's a different story. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. But I mean, presumably we'll relate these to the membership figures that were produced earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that right, Eunice?
Yeah, but I can provide that additional information, because I'm sure we can, because we have a full extract in terms of every member, what errors have been produced, so we should be able to collate that information. Yeah, we should be able to collect that information.
Thanks, Eunice. Thanks, Sam. Thank you.
Well, Eunice, all I can say is the best of luck. I mean, I worry about this because if these percentages, like 84%, were kind of in a private sector scheme, you'd have the regulator crawling all over you, rest assured. And one day the regulator is going to come crawling all over you unless you hopefully improve in the next 6 or 12 months.
Yeah. Touch wood, we will see a better score next period.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks, Eunice, and thanks for the various presentations, and we'll happy to note the report. Yeah, thank you. Item 9 then, the employer monthly submissions. This has got to be you, Claire.
It is, thank you. This is the standard quarterly update on latent and correct employer submissions, and today the report covers the second quarter of 21-22. The fund monitors closely employer compliance with their statutory responsibility to pay over member contributions on a timely basis. Details of the number of late payments and late data submissions are set out in Table 1 on page 104. As you can see, there's generally good compliance from employers. The area of poorest performance is the submission of data returns, which is either a late submission being made or where the submission does not match the cash that's been paid across to us. During the quarter, there aren't any specific concerns about employers that we wish to bring to your attention. Further down on page 104, employers who miss the fund's deadline on 3 out of 6 occasions will be fined unless they can offer extenuating circumstances. And Table 2 sets out the number of fines issued in the quarter, and as you can see, there has just been one. Wouldn't propose to say anything else specifically about the report, but I'm very happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No questions, no comments? Happy to note the report. I think we've discussed possible further actions using Amy's team. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And certainly we are proactive, and where we believe that it's a problem which needs assistance,
Yes.
then they are referred back.
Get to 100% one day, Joe. If only for 1 month. Item 10 then, the annual report and accounts.
That's me again, thank you.
I thought it would be.
The report today brings an update on the work from the external auditor and the timing of the opinion on the pension fund accounts. The external auditor completed their work on the pension fund accounts and issued their audit completion report in October and a follow-up letter in November, and both of these are attached to the report at Appendix A and B. The information contained within the audit completion report reconfirms the messages which were provided to the board in their update report at October's meeting. The audit opinion was given on Thursday the 16th of December, and the annual report, including the consistency opinion, was republished on the fund's website before Christmas. A question was received before the meeting regarding the AVC information from Prudential, which is to be included within the accounts. This wasn't provided in time to make it into the final version of the accounts. To cover this, a representation was provided by management to the external auditor. That information was promised to us by the end of December, but to date hasn't been received. But we do continue to chase that. If nothing else, we need that for comparators in next year's accounts. So be assured that we will keep on at Prudential to get that information so that we can put that into next year's accounts.
Any questions, comments? I really do think the Prue have got away with murder here, but anyway, there we are. So the accounts are now signed off?
Just one question. Sorry, probably asked this last time. I'm sure I did about Mazars. I mean, again, that your comments on their performance or their performance, I suppose. I'm sure I did ask that last time. Sorry.
Be careful.
Yeah, I'll reiterate what I said last time. Really, it's been a really difficult year for them. I think one of the other things we discussed last time was me discussing with colleagues at county treasurer level about the audit situation as well, and there have been various discussions about that, which is essentially culminated in a letter from Catherine Francis, who's the Deputy Director General of Local Government for the Community and Local Government Department, around essentially a bit of a diktat around being, you know, it's a difficult situation, be nice, play nice type thing, and they're trying to fix it via this new audit procurement process. So, and that's the extent that we've got to. I've discussed it with Lorna Baxter, who's the president of the County Treasurers Society, and there's a plan to try and have some further discussions with Tony Crawley, who's the chief executive of public sector audit appointments, at some point in the coming period. But everybody's in the same boat. It did look like we were in a position where our accounts were going to be right at the back end of the ones that were being signed, but we seem to have overtaken a significant number of counties in the process over Christmas. So, but it's unsatisfactory.
Andrew.
Yes, Councillor Whittington.
If I may, Roger. So this problem is not just a Mazars problem. It's just it's a general problem with all local authority auditors.
I don't think it's just local authority. I think it's the public sector generally. The fragility of the audit sector market.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, Mark, and Andrew knows this, that if you like, I've got another attempted initiative through SITFA. I've put SITFA in touch with a fairly senior partner at PwC, so that they can kind of have conversations and decide on a possible approach. I mean, at the end of the day, the public sector, what do you call it? Public sector audit appointments have bashed down the fees too much. Simple as that. And so, the big firms are just walking away because they just cannot do the audit for the and the possible liability. I mean, that was the big issue. I mean, I sat with the Grant Thornton partner at the SCT dinner, and he just said that for the liabilities, the fees are just, well, they'll be walking away next. As simple as that.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I'm chairman of the SK audit committee, and we had a similar issue with our auditors, not quite as to the same extent as with Mazars, but accounts being started late. And again, and our accountants are Grant Thornton, and they said the same thing. The fees have just been negotiated down so low that there just isn't. They're not sufficient to cover the work that needs to be done. So therefore, they're taking longer because the firms can't commit the level of resource to the audit that it actually needs.
If I was bold to suggest it, Mark, with your political hat on, and whether or not you want to mention this to Martin Hill,
yeah,
it really needs an input at government level. I mean, there was a report last September which the former Secretary of State kicked into touch, because that at least proposed a way forward. But there's going to be some fundamental problems with public sector fraud, whatever, in the future unless something is done. That is my forecast. Yeah.
I'll speak to Martin about it because it seems to be. I think there just is a level of concern because I know we're going into a new round of potentially looking for in the round for appointing new auditors at the moment, but it doesn't make any difference because if all auditors are in this are in the same boat, so it doesn't matter if you replace an auditor because any auditor you replace are going to have exactly the same issues and problems. it's, as you said, Roger, it's a sector issue, and only really the politicians can sort it out.
That's right. That's right. And we don't want what's happening in government in certain areas to happen in the wider public sector. Simple as that.
No, absolutely not. No.
So we'll watch this space, but I think it's fair to say from the Lincolnshire angle, we are trying to take certain initiatives. But if Martin ever wants to talk to me about it, I'm more than happy to chat to him.
Okay, Roger. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask, as it's a late submission of the audit, do we get any fines, or is there anything that happens to us?
No.
As a pension fund, no, but just have Michelle remind me actually that the deadline for next year's accounts has been put back to the end of November from the end of September, so
Has it really?
they might just not be quite as late. But we'll see how much of a difference that does make. But no, we don't. We publish our annual report by the statutory deadline for the pension fund, albeit without the audit opinion. But as I say, we were one of many funds that did that.
I'll just add from, I think I've talked about it before, I'm not sure whether you were on the meeting actually, Kim, but it was in the old days, it was the professional pride. It was one of the, you didn't get the accounts wrong, or you didn't get them late. Now there's 90% of councils didn't get their accounts signed off on time now, and it's almost just become the acceptable norm, which is completely unacceptable, and that's the big problem with it, really.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll note the report, Claire, thank you, and we'll see what happens to the various initiatives. So item 11, training needs.
So this is just the board's normal opportunity to discuss training needs and review any training that's been attended during the last 3 months and consider if there are any further areas that you would like to be covered in the future. Attached to the report are the conference notes produced by Hymans Robertson for the face-to-face pension managers conference, which was held in November, and I'll hand over to you to discuss any training matters.
Any training to report?
So go on, Jerry. Go on.
All I've attended, yeah, just a 1-hour webinar with Hymans on admin challenges and changes, which was okay, but nothing too exciting. But that's all. No courses as such, really.
Kim?
I did attend the Fundamentals Day 2 that I didn't do at the start, and then because of COVID, it's taken me a while to complete it. But yeah, I went to Leeds for that. That's very useful.
Yeah, no, they are very good. Those. Dave? No?
I've not attended, or I mean, it's the same as, it's more what I see online and what Hyman send me still, and what the actuaries send me. That is what I'm picking up on at the moment.
I've done a few. Just to mention, I do like the Room 151. Those and the COP26 issues and that were pretty good. That was in October. I attended a Fidante one, and you know where the invitation came from. So that was all about Australian pensions, and obviously very different to here, but it was quite interesting. A couple of sessions on private credit and private markets, including an annual conference. Perhaps one of the better ones was XPS, who did a session on pension scams, and particularly transfers out. I just wonder whether I should have mentioned that to Eunice, actually, because it's worth actually getting the recording. And because there's this new standard that you've got to do various things, which I thought was very good. But I'll send you my update there.
Roger, can I just ask, you mentioned this room, was it
Room 151?
Yeah. Is that, can any one of us just log in or ask to?
Well, it's geared to the LGPS. So I think the answer to that is yes. But it's very much investment orientated.
But do I have to register? Do you know?
Well, when I get an invitation, I'll send it, a copy of it to you, if you like.
Thank you.
That's the best way.
It's actually like a news website. It's based from. It covers, as you say, pensions matters, audit matters, and other like financial issues.
Oh, does
it? Yeah. But they do put events on. I think it is just. I don't know how the rates work, but I think you would be able to attend stuff. There are certain events geared to certain different types of people in the sector. So they do have Section 151 only sort of events as well, but I think it is generally open access, isn't it, Joe, some of the stuff? Yeah.
It's finding a microphone. Yes, I mean, what we can do is we can send the website link round to you so you can go and have a look, and it will say it covers Treasury, or it covers all sorts of different things, but they are very good on what they do for the LGPS. They did a conference, face-to-face one, I think, in November.
That was at the Stock Exchange,
yes,
wasn't it?
yes, but they do a lot of online, really useful stuff as well, so we'll share that website address around.
Sorry, all I was going to say, Joe, is that, I mean, as a pension board member, will they ask for evidence of why, or do I qualify? You know what I mean? Will there be? Is there a? It's not that it's open-ended to anyone. I'm going to have to show.
Well, I think it might ask you. It might ask you the organisation. So Lincolnshire, I'm a member of the local pension board. Okay.
Is the training session in February still on for the committee? Because obviously with COVID and everything, in terms of attendance, physical attendance, and what does it cover? I'm sure I should know that, but
Valuation. Yeah, I presume.
Yes, it's a full day, and it covers the valuation. So we'll have Barnet Waddingham coming to discuss how they'll be doing the valuation, any issues, concerns, what the process is, etc. And then we'll be doing a session on the investment beliefs and responsible investment beliefs, with new committee members, etc. Need to make sure that we still have the agreement with the beliefs that we publish. So. But it's a full day, 17th of February.
17th of Feb.
Depending upon restrictions, yes. I mean, physical would be our preference. Yes, committee room is, council chamber is booked, but we will just have to wait and see nearer the time.
Did you want to ask something, Mark?
No, I was going to say I found my principal training. I used to sort of rely on the conference in May that used to go down to Cirencester, which has not been held for a couple of years because of COVID. I'm rather hoping now that may return this May, but I don't know if it will or not.
Yeah, it is on. It's not in May though. It's in June. I'm trying to remember. They've moved the date. They'd originally said July, but that clashed with something else. So I think it's in June now, and they're hoping it will be in person. But I don't think there's final information come out about it yet. But we will share that. Probably in the monthly letter, it will come out as soon as we see that, as we share all kind of relevant conferences, etc. And obviously everyone on the board is welcome to attend that. That one in particular by PLSA is very good because they do specific events for the board and they cover the wider remit of the pension fund as opposed to more pure investments.
Yeah, which is just because I sometimes find with other commitments it's difficult to sort of do other things, but I always use to sort of work on the basis that by attending that, because it is quite pension board and quite related, it used to sort of cover most of my training requirements. But of course, I've not done it for, obviously because of COVID.
Yeah, 13th to 15th of June are the dates. So if you want to pencil that in, and as soon as we get the information, we will share that round.
Brilliant, thanks, Joe. Thank you.
If you don't mind me saying, that's not very good. Clashes with a test match.
They should have known, Roger. They've got to get priorities right, haven't they?
Part of it clashes with a test match. Might all be over actually thinking about it.
Yeah, figuring about it.
Yeah. Right, back to item 11 then. Is there any particular training issue that anybody is keen on? Just happy to pick up what we see, these various webinars, whatever.
Coming up potentially, I guess, isn't it? But they'll all be covered as governance and dashboard.
ESG is going to be the big one, isn't it? Oh dear.
I mean, we normally,
Yeah.
if there's a training session, it's normally committee and board, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm not saying we can't have our own.
No, I was just thinking external because we're not seeing much sit for Barnet-Waddingham at the moment. I think there's a bit of a fallout there from all accounts.
Well,
So I've
yeah, the Cyprus pulling out of that one that they do quarterly or whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing that is very good is the Hyman's briefing reports. They're really good. Okay. That's the LGPS one down.
The PLSA annual local authority conference. I mean, there is a conference at Carden Park at the end of March, but that's very much more investment focused.
That's another one.
Bournemouth was the LAPFF, the Local Authority Pension Fund Forum, that was held in December, and Councillor Strengle attended that one.
But there's one down in Bournemouth, isn't there, in January?
Yes, there is the governance, the LGA annual governance.
Is Eddie going to that?
No, having looked at the agenda, there's not a lot that as officers definitely we've seen and heard in numerous different places. Right. I think virtual attendance was incredibly expensive at about £400. Whereas normally virtual attendance is free. So we obviously sent the information out, and if anyone feels that it's useful for them, then they can attend. But it didn't seem good value given the subjects when we looked.
Okay. Right, happy to note that report then. And we'll continue. I mean, if I see anything, I'll send it round. Because one or two of the XPS ones I find are very good. Well, I've been to a lot, but I mean, the new code will be a big issue. That's, you know. Right, let's move on to the final item then, the work programme. Is that you again, Claire?
It is. So it's an opportunity to look at the future work plan. The current work plan is attached to the report at Appendix A, and if we look forward to the next meeting, we have currently on the agenda the fund update, stewardship update, admin update, and employer monthly submissions. In addition to that, we've got the twice yearly temporary bank account item, and March's meeting will also cover the annual review of policies, the fund's business plan and budget, and annual accounts, a review of accounting policies. I haven't picked up anything else from the meeting, so that is the agenda as it stands at the moment. Is there anything you would like adding at the moment?
I've got one or two suggestions, but are there any kind of deep dives you want to do as a board? You know, like we did the deep dive into Borders to Coast. I mean, one thing I wouldn't mind, and I don't know whether this would be you, Joe, and Claire, or whether it would might be Eunice, but I wouldn't mind a report on the McLeod case, and because I mean, I read various things, but it would be just nice to receive a presentation, and it just seems to the government always seem to be in trouble because the firefighters are taking yet a further action against them for the delays and God knows what, whatever. So I wouldn't mind something on that, if only for, you know, the knowledge, and more importantly, how Eunice is going to deliver it. That's the big worry.
All I was going to ask is there going to be a deadline for completion? Do we not know that yet? I mean, it's a worry enough, isn't it, to think about all the work, but I didn't know whether it was going to be and by type. instruction?
I'd just like to understand it all.
I think Eunice is desperate to answer that one. Eunice?
Yeah, happy to provide a report on that. It will, and as Roger said, there is kind of lots of movement on the fire and police side in terms of making good for the membership in what they call the immediate detriment. But that seems to have hit a stumbling block as well, because the FBU and the LGA had a memorandum of understanding in terms of how they would progress, and then because of the complications with tax issues, the Home Office have kind of withdrawn the guidance that they'd provided initially. So it's hit a bit of a stumbling block, but certainly the MacLeod pension, I think I mentioned in the technical update that it is going through the passage in the House of Lords at the moment, and once that is made law, then that will open up for LGPS regulations to be updated to enable for us to be able to progress the cases. But yeah, happy to provide a report in terms of what MacLeod is and where we are at with MacLeod.
And the CPR code, I mean, that's due to be issued this year, isn't it? I think it's summer. Summer, isn't it?
I don't think that it will come out until the summer now. They've delayed it even further.
Good to have training on that when it comes out.
Do we know how many people roughly MacLeod affects for our pension pot? Because it won't be everyone, will it? Have we got a rough idea of numbers? Is that something that we could have in the report?
We can. We do have numbers somewhere, so yeah, we can include that. But yeah, it won't be everybody, but it is quite a big percentage.
And one of the things that the actuary will be talking about in the valuation thing is how they're going to build MacLeod into the valuation this time, because obviously they built it in 2019, a little bit further along, but still not that far along. So they'll discuss that at the training session. It wasn't 1%, no. I don't think it was. It was quite a small amount, but it's very different for each employer. So.
Another one, and I guess this is you, Joe. There was the GAD report, the section, what is it? Section 13. Will that come up on the training session, or, you know, because they've issued that report, or I saw something from Hyman's, I think it was. And I wondered how we kind of stood against what GAD was saying. Will we get something on that?
Yeah, we had no red flags, we had no amber flags.
Oh, well, that's
so
all.
we were all green flags.
All green.
So yes, I can ask that to be built in. They have put forward, I think there was 4 or 5 recommendations that the actuaries will consider going forwards, but obviously that was on the 2019 data, so it's already nearly evaluation period out of date. But you know, I can happily share the report. It's quite a lot of pages of reading, but we aren't mentioned, we weren't contacted. What GAD do is any funds that they have issues or concerns with, they will directly contact, and they will go to the actuaries for more information as required, but we kind of had a clean bill of health again. Right, so but I'm happy to share the report if people would like to see that.
I think it'd be useful, please.
Yeah.
And then the only other one, which is probably not for the next month, next quarter from me, we have talked about doing something about the effectiveness, looking at the effectiveness of we as a pension board. And I'm not sure how we do that, whether we get somebody in independent or what have you. But, you know, I'd just like us to be, you know, one of the best pension boards in the country. But it's, I don't know whether we are or not. No idea.
Yeah, one of the things that we had talked about was about, as part of once the good governance review comes out,
right.
Once the actual final report on that, and we know exactly what we've got to do, is to have a governance review across the committee, the board, the fund, looking across the whole. So I think that would be the most opportune moment to do a full review of everything rather than a separate individual reviews.
No, that's fine.
If you're happy.
That's fine. probably enough for...
Just one thing, Roger. On the work programme for 17th of March, when we're doing the review of accounting policies report, Claire's, will that include some sort of input from Mazars? Because part of the problems have been kind of some Mazars a slightly different interpretation of some of the accounting policies, or I'm just wondering if as part of that understanding where Mazars coming from might be quite useful.
Certainly we can invite Mazars to attend on that. I think we've not so much had issues around interpretation of accounting policies. The problem has really been around timing of valuations.
Yeah, right.
And I think with the deadlines early as they were, it was always a balance of getting as much information in there as possible. I think as we stand now, we have to accept we will prepare a set of accounts based on the information that we have for 31st of March at the draft publication date, and then if any of those movements beyond that in the unquoted valuations come in being material, either individually or to the fund as a whole, then we will have to make changes to the accounts. There is no way that Mazars will sign off without doing that, and it will always be reported. And because of the timescales as they are now, there is really nothing that we can do about that, unfortunately. But I'm very happy. John Presley is always happy to come and speak either to the committee and board, and I'm sure he'd be very happy to come along and just explain a little bit about the process and the timing of some of that work, if you would like that.
I think that might be. I think, Roger, that might be quite useful, because just for us to sort of understand it from Mazars' perspective as well might be quite informative.
Well, quite happy, yeah.
Yep, I'll get that invitation.
Get some, in terms of accounting policies, presumably SITFA publish something each year, do they? Which you'll drive from, as it were.
Yeah, I think we're exceptionally lucky in the public sector that SITFA provide in the code of practice, in the guidance notes, an interpretation of how a normal authority would take the standards and put them into accounting policies. The accounting policies that we run for the pension fund are almost exactly as prescribed by SITFA. We vary just on one or two very small areas. One of them's around accruing of benefits outstanding at year end. That's really the only place where we vary from what SITFA are suggesting a model set of accounting policies should be. So we bring them because it makes sense for the process, so that you and the committee look at accounting policies before we use them to prepare the accounts, and then how they're interpreted through into the accounts. But the reality is an awful lot of that is standard and set, and we wouldn't deviate away from that to any great extent.
I'm presuming, Claire, that where we deviate is because we're doing something slightly more than the SIFA policy would indicate.
The deviation around how we accrue for benefits is because we don't believe that there is anything material. West Yorkshire run it so that obviously payroll is on the 23rd of the month. They then do any benefit payments, so for example lump sums, right up to the 31st of the month, and we make a payment for that. There may be a very, very small number that aren't picked up on that run where we've got a commitment to pay a lump sum but haven't yet paid that, but they will be so minimal in comparison to the around £100 million of the benefits that we're paying each year that we wouldn't want to do any further work to identify those.
Because I'm guessing because the level of materiality there is so small, it's virtually not. Yeah. Thanks, Claire. Thank you.
Just to say, are you expecting any changes in accounting policies to come through from SIP? Because that's the key thing, is any changes, which I'm not aware there'll be any.
In terms of changes to accounting standards, the major standard that's changing between last year and this year is around leasing, and actually that has no impact on the pension fund. We don't hold any leases, so I'm not expecting to see anything, or certainly nothing fundamental at all coming through.
we're approving the work programme that you've put with those additions. Yeah. Anything else? Right. I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you, Mark, for dialing
hopefully,
in. Thank you,
in
Eunice.
March I'll be able to be there in person.
Yeah, let's hope so.
If we're not self isolating, but tomorrow's the day when